Welcome back, everyone. I hope you all are well and things have been going good. I'm sorry that we don't have our Pakistani participants with us joining us today. So since they have their exams and we also have um, the third wave of coronavirus is here in Pakistan, so we have to be very careful. The schools have been shut down again and the students are suffering a lot due to this. So, but we'll have their contribution in our next session. We'll share videos from their side, their reviews on the books. They won't be joining us live on Zoom, but we'll share their videos with you. And also we'll have much more activity in our Facebook group. So let's start today's session. I believe we are going to be discussing two books today, The Bookseller of Kabul and Empires of the Indus. So those of you who have finished Bookseller of Kabul, we can start with that book. Or if any one of you wants to start with Empires of the Indus, we can start with that. It's up to you guys.
Yes, and we are so sad for that we can't see the Pakistani students and we can't discuss with them. And most of our students are absent because of the changing time and changing the time of decision. And we have some of our students with us, and we can start our program now.
All right, so any one of you who would like to come, I'm here to discuss the book with you. My colleague will also join in soon. So if any one of you who wants to come forward and start the conversation.
Assalamu alaikum. I hope you are doing well. And my name is Nigina Najim. I'm a student and also the last book before the bestseller, we read a book by the name of Empire of the Hindus. And it is about the story of a river that this book is written by Alice Albania. It's about the journey and also it is about the journey and say a story about the river and also the main point of these books it say about the community or religious. Continue. Should I continue? Okay. And also it was about the story of it was about the story of Hindus people and religious religion, about the religion, and also we inform or familiar with the different culture of Hindu people and more generalized community. And we know about the national border between countries, between cities and provinces in this book. And also we know about the environment concern and inside that book. This book about the story that we learn about the different religion or national of other countries. And it is about individual story that inform has and that in the world we have different national and religion that we should familiar with some of them inside these books. This is my idea about the Empire of the Hindus book. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you so much for your very well put review. Anyone else who would like to come and talk about Empires of the Indus?
I think we have already forgot them.
Sorry, I didn't catch that. Can you please repeat?
I think the students want to speak about this prestigious book, bookseller.
We can go ahead with Bookseller of Kabul.
Uh, in the name of kind Allah, by the permission of you all, my respected students and cooperators and teacher. So I want to talk about the session's book called The Bookseller of Kabul. So there was a foreign journalist called Asni Seistert, based the bookseller of Kabul. So after investigations a lot, he came to Afghanistan and started living for a short time with an Afghan family. And the name of the family, the man of the family, called Muhammad Rais. And Muhammad Rais had two wives, and after the author of Bookseller of Kabul left for a short while with this family, she was so amazed by the situation of that family, by the situation that how a man is keeping in touch with that two wives, and how in this unsuitable situation he's continuing and he is supporting and pampering all his family. And the more and the discussion prompts were about the male domination, about Afghan family life, and Taliban polygamy and patriarchy. And this was the conclusion of the session that I shared with you.
Thank you so much for your thoughts. Anyone else who would like to come up and talk about Bookseller of Kabul? We can dive more into what the writer basically she went to Afghanistan and she lived with this family, and that's how the book transpired. But the story that she wrote, that is a bit fictionalized, and it also talks about the history of Afghanistan and how the Russian regime affected the cultural and the socio-political scenario of the country. So if anyone who would like to come up and talk about that. Your thoughts on how the writer presented the book.
I hope all of you doing well. The Bookseller of Kabul, the book that this month we wrote, it was about the one author that he lived with a family in Kabul, and the family do the leader of the family do the book sells for the other people. And the main point that I was catch from this book, it was that in that time, when the Taliban regime comes to the Afghanistan, the situation become worse for the people, and also they can't do their typically works that they had, and also they didn't continue their education also. You know, we have a bad situation in the Taliban times, and it was very worse. And the people that lives in there in that time, they had a lot of difficulties, and they can't do their works, and also some of the gone to the for foreign countries also, because the situation was very bad, and also the Taliban regime was that at the time that the women's can't education, and also the situation for the families also became very bad, and they can't do their typically or common works very well, and it can be destroyed, places destroyed, like schools, mosques, and other places like hospitals. You know, when we have a fight, we lost our basic places that it's important for every countries, and the main point was that it was a very bad time for our countries, and we lost a very better livelihood in our country. It was all.
Thank you so much for those thoughts. Anybody else from the group who'd like to come and talk to us about the book that they read? We're still discussing book clubs of booksellers of Kabul. So we would love to have some more thoughts on this.
Hello, Ms. Sonia. I'm so glad to meet you again. Sorry, lots of our students are absent, and these students that you see, they discuss about the knowledge, and I think there is no one to discuss about the book and going ahead or
So, all right. So let's start a discussion. Okay, the book that we read, The Booksellers of Kabul, it talks about how Afghanistan was going through a systematic change, right? So the political system was changing, the governance was changing, Afghanistan itself was going through a change, right? So we had the Soviet war, and with it, it brought about so many changes that impacted the way people were used to living. And this book talks about that change, right? That cusp in which Afghanistan is going through a systematic shift from being a liberal, modern, developing country. War took it back. So, what is the one thing that war does before and above anything else? It increases poverty, it creates economic losses, and all of those result in backward or countries or societies moving back in time. The progress that had been made is stopped. Not just that it is stopped, it actually regresses, right? So schools, colleges, hospitals, public spaces all become affected by the ravages of war itself. And that impacts the growth of the country. We lose a lot of our people because of war. So many people die. And then properties get affected because they're impacted by war itself. So, for example, school buildings, roads, all of our infrastructure, everything gets negatively impacted. And this writer is talking about how all of this impacts the most basic thing that we all have, which is the way we think, right? A lot of times, whether we accept it consciously or we don't accept it consciously, is that books have a way of opening our minds to different ideas, to different opinions that exist in the world around us. When we read a book, we are not just reading a book, we're reading about a culture, we're reading a society, we're reading a thought which exists somewhere in the world that we live in, but which might not directly be ours, right? So this book is really, really fascinating because it talks about a little bookstore which had before the war been getting books from all over. It would go to adjoining Pakistan, get literature from there. It was very popular. People would come and buy these books. And then unfortunately, when war happened, what happened was that the books became less important and people started investing, looking at survival. So food took precedence over books. Now, whereas before children would get pocket money, they would save that money and go buy a book, suddenly they couldn't do that, right? Unfortunately for all of you, you grew up in these tumultuous times, in these times when you saw war and its effects on the beautiful country around you. You saw it being mismanaged, and it impacted the way you were looking at the world around you. So not only were you focusing on trying to survive, you were also trying to educate yourselves, improve on your lives, and become better citizens, not just for yourselves, but for your country. So your responsibilities increased tenfold. And a lot of things that most people in the world take for granted is like security, moving around, and other things suddenly became issues, right? So it wasn't just about there being a school and you walking to that school to get an education. It was the whole change in the structure of your society, which kind of made you question whether school was the right thing to do or not, whether girls should be going to school, whether girls and boys should be studying together. And all of these things were things that you as a country, you as a nation had already evolved towards. So before the invasion of Afghanistan by the Soviets, Afghanistan was prospering, right? It had co-education, it had hospitals where women and men were doctors and providing healthcare. You had institutions where men and women were teaching and providing education. You had public spaces where men and women were independent and codependent, right? Because both of them lived in the same world, but they were independent in their own ways. And when you have these independence, what it does is it makes you understand your self-worth as a person, and it makes you understand what you bring to the table and what your assets are. So there is less exploitation, there is less violence, and of course there are things that exist, but your awareness of yourself becomes so much more improved that it impacts the way you look at yourself. So when you have children, you give them those values, and it's a cycle that continues. So every generation teaches something to the new generation, and then it moves on. What this book does, it's a book um, that goes to the rest of the world, right? And it tells them that what is war doing to the people of Afghanistan, what it is doing to the children, what it is doing to the people who want to read books or want to have spaces where books are. So all of these things kind of come together and weave really well in the book. All of you gave us your summaries of the book, but now what I really want to know is, when you were reading the book, were there any passages that you thought were very, very that they resonated with you? Or were there any things that you came across that you felt that were part of your everyday, that you could understand, that you could build on? Or were there any things that the writer had written that you disagreed with? I want us to have a conversation on that today. So Afghanistan, over to you.
Totally understand the main idea of the bookseller by your speech. Thank you so much. As Miss Olia,
Yes.
one of our students, Nagina John, want to speak about this book and totally the idea of the writers of it. Was it? Yes.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Good morning for you. I hope you are doing well. And also, I think, in my point of view, this book, the author, the purpose of the author in this book is to encourage every people to try in a community, and also we know that that our life, everyone has a difficulty and a problem in their life, in their lives, and we should in some situation we struggle with different conflict in our life, but we should try to the dilemma, try to okay, we should solve and also try again and again to solve our problem, and also if we fail in our life, and we try again, and also at the end, if we face it with failure, but if we try again and again and solve our problem, we should reach for success and achieve lots of things in our life. And we should know that we should know that in our community, in our country, we face with a lots of governmental problem, and also a self problem and personal problem in with the ourselves and with the community people. And this is the situation that we should create a balance between ourselves and between ourselves, our society, and it has helped us to solve our problem, and also live in a community with a very good situation, and also with the hope of development, and also we should try to communicate with different people in our community, and we should use from their idea, and also their idea, and learn from others, and also share our idea or perspective for others. And this help us to develop ourselves, and also we should try to serve our people in our community or our country, and do something better in our society. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you so much. Yes, I completely agree. We should never let failure define us. We should never be scared of failure. On the contrary, what failure does is it also teaches us. It teaches us what not to do, which is as important as knowing what to do. So, we should always explore our possibilities, our lives. We should explore our ideas, and we should not let others define what they think is our situation, but we should be the ones who define us. So, on that note, I would like to, we have another person who joined us in the middle, I checked. Can I know your name, and can we know your thoughts on the book? Right now, we are discussing the book called Booksellers of Kabul. Today, we're going to be discussing two books because, unfortunately, because of some circumstances and the whole pandemic taking our world over and changing things around and moving our schedules, we will be discussing two books, The Booksellers of Kabul and Empires of the Indus. So currently we are discussing Booksellers of Kabul. So if you would like to come and tell us your thoughts on what the book meant to you and what you learned from it.
Mr. Do you want to speak about the books?
Good morning, and we should be fine. As we have studied two books before, here is the first book that we have studied about the Empire of Windows, and the book was an amazing book, and it was all about the story of the river, story of a river, and how can.
So sorry to cut you. We are currently talking about Booksellers of Kabul. So tell us what you thought about that book, and then we will come back and talk about Empires of the Indus.
Okay. The Booksellers of the Kabul is written by a Norwegian writer, and also it was all about the experience of a Norwegian writer living with an Afghan family during 3 months. And the book, overall, the book was about the literacy heritage and also the literacy culture and male domination. And also we should work in it that we should decrease male domination and work in the woman rule. And beside that, the libraries and the bookshops are the best literacy heritage and literacy culture, and this can protect and preserve it. And also, one of the most important issues that I noticed during studying the book, it was the point that says, if the families don't have rules, so how can we form a family that can respect rules and laws? So here we come to this issue that if everyone respect rules and laws, so if every person in a family respect it, so the people in a society and in a community also can preserve it and can respect it. And it was a really great book, The Bookseller of Kabul, and also I learned a lot from it, and it was a really good book. Yeah, that's done.
Thank you so much for those thoughts. We will be moving on to our next book now, but before we do, I thought that I would share some of the students from Pakistan's testimonies and what they have experienced through the book clubs. As you know, because of the pandemic, schools in Pakistan have shut down, and it is really difficult to kind of figure out a remote situation for the students to get connected because of internet and all of that. So what we have decided to do is we've decided to collect their testimonies, which we will share with you for each session till the school situation clears up over here. So I'm going to be sharing my screen. Just give me 1 minute. I'm just going to go and ask my screen to be enabled. It's currently disabled. All right, so I'm going to be sharing my screen with you guys, and I'm going to be sharing some of the testimonies of students from Pakistan who were part of this session, and this is what they had to say. Can you guys see clearly?
Yes, we can see it. Yes.
Okay, lovely.
We don't have sound.
You can't hear?
Yeah, we don't have sound. We can't hear it. Oh.
You couldn't hear?
Yes, we couldn't hear.
Okay, so tell me if you can hear now.
Yes.
And I'm from the book Fearless Woman of Pakistan. This book is a very motivational and very powerful and inspirational book. This is about the inspirational figures of Pakistan. There are many inspirational women in this book, but I and all of them are an inspiration for all. But one of my most favorite and a true inspiration is Zenith Irfan. Through this, in this article, one of my most favorite paragraph that I felt that just really touched my heart is exhilarated by her triumph. 21-year-old Zenith Irfan biked 3,200 kilometers from Lahore up to the Kundra Pass in 2050 on a 150cc Suzuki bike, and it is thought to be the first Pakistani female motorcyclist to travel alone in the north of Pakistan. This was a big undertaking, and not just because of the distance, but because this part of Pakistan is fairly conservative and women do not leave their homes without a male escort. Zenith has undertaken two more solo long distance trips since completing an incredible 20,000 kilometer on her motorcycle. I had no fears because I realized the fact that if I am fearful, something negative is bound to happen. I close my eyes and say a small prayer and pump the accelerator. If death has to come, it'll come anyway, even if I'm at home. I have chosen this paragraph as it is a very powerful and motivational thing that she said. In Pakistan, women cannot do what they want to do. They cannot fulfill their dreams because of the people. Because the families say in Pakistan, women are considered weak. This people say that they cannot do this, they cannot do that, they will hurt themselves, or they are weak, they can't do that, they cannot fulfill their dreams. But Zenith Irfan encountered all the challenges and faced all the stereotypes and conservative people and faced every challenge and fulfilled her and her father and her late father's dream. I really admire her and she is my inspiration. I truly love and admire her. She did a great achievement and I am very proud of her. She is a really strong woman and she conveyed a message to all that do whatever you can. You shouldn't be bound to something. Fulfill your dreams and face all the challenges. She was a really strong woman. Thank you. That's all I want.
So this was a participant from Pakistan. Even though I know you were not reading Fearless, I still wanted to use her story because it kind of resonates with a lot of problems that I know women in Afghanistan also face. So that is one thing that we do have in common, that society does not make it easy for women in Pakistan or Afghanistan to go and follow their dreams and fulfill whatever it is that they desire to be. But if we look at our history, both countries, Pakistan and Afghanistan, have had women who have been strong, who had defied the odds and actually gone and done something for themselves, for their countries. We've had rulers, we've had amazing warriors, women who have been amazing with literature, who have contributed in all walks of life. And I want all of us to always remember that when we look at our history, when we look at our stories, we should be the ones to define which stories we want to connect with, and which are the stories that we want to take forward. On that note, I want us to move to the second book that we're supposed to be discussing today, which is Empires of the Indus by Alice Albania. This is a book that I really, by the way, like. I really enjoyed reading it, and I hope you guys enjoyed it too. So before we start the discussion, I would like to ask each and every one of you what you thought about the book and what did you learn from it. And then each one of you will give me a point that we will discuss as we move further. So Afghanistan, over to you.
Hello. Okay, hope you all fine and really happy to have to see you again. So the book Empire of Indians, as we said, it was one of the greatest book by the writer Alice Albania, and also this book has won many awards. So the book was about a little bit about politics, and it was about the story of the river of describes the Arabians' journey throughout the time and place from Karachi and shore of Arabian Sea. So in this book, there was some non-fiction stories written about people's life and also about the river that connects countries. And it was also about the goodness of a river that made a friendship with countries. So it was all we get from the books, and we would like to hear from you also.
Thank you so much for those thoughts. I have lots of thoughts that I will share with you, but first I want to know all of your opinions, and then we will have a discussion on what I thought and what you thought.
Okay, as I said, this book gave an insight to the communities as well as the history and politic framework of the countries throughout today's also as today's social things. So this was the things we got from it.
So which was your favorite part? Did you like anything in particular? Did you some communities that you did not even know was part of Pakistan or part of the Indus route?
So this was all like one of those best books we have studied. So the first part was the my favorite part, because that was a little bit about the introduction of the books, and there was some good materials that was so interesting for me.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so here's a thing to learn, which I think is very, very interesting, is that so the book basically follows the Indus River, right? And rivers, since the beginning of time, have been known to give life, right? Because the water itself is a source of life. So everywhere the river flows, you find life. And in the olden days, before the modern industrial revolution and then the capitalism and all of that, people for the longest amount of time used to form civilizations on the riverbanks, right? So everywhere in the world, civilizations flourished near water. You've heard of the Nile and you've heard of the Egyptian civilization. You've heard of the Indus and you've heard of the Indus civilization. You've heard of the Mediterranean and you've heard of the Byzantines. You've heard of, so like what I'm trying to say is that rivers themselves give life. And what is really fascinating is that Pakistan and Afghanistan are not just neighbors who share land, who have the Durand line, which connects us by land, but we also connect with each other by a river, because the river Indus starts from China. From China, it flows into the Gilgit-Baltistan region of Pakistan. From Gilgit-Baltistan, it flows down to what is Kashmir and the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa region. When it comes down to the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, it flows into the Attock River. And from Attock, it joins the Kabul River. So we also share a civilization and a source of life with each other, because the river that flows from Pakistan actually flows into Afghanistan, the Kabul River, and the Kabul River is extremely important for life in Afghanistan. So that was something that I found very fascinating to read about, to understand. What this book actually did for me was, like, I've always understood that rivers mattered, but what it did for me was, as a Pakistani, it made me re-understand my country, my geography, my life source, but it also made me realize that there are so many different ethnicities, different people, different cultures, different stories that exist. And the book is really, really well written because it doesn't talk about these things in a boring manner. On the contrary, it picks up on the different legends that exist in each region and creates or weaves a magic of, connecting people with stories. So it kind of makes us want to understand it more. Like, for example, in Sindh, where she starts from in Karachi, she talks about Ramzan and what is Ramzan in a Muslim country. What are the things that you see around you? The silence during the day when everyone's fasting, and the joy in the night with the food streets and the colors and the noise and the movement of people. So all of this is very fascinating. And as she moves down, she keeps on telling us different cultural things that bring color to an otherwise very quiet land, right? And that is something that I found very fascinating personally. So on that note, I'd like to know what all the other people sitting there thought about the book. So if anybody else would like to come and share their thoughts on Empires of the Indus, I'm all sitting and waiting.
There's no one to talk about the Empire of the Hindus. All of our students speak about this book and the bookseller of the Kabul. And we are glad to see the more videos of Pakistanis students, and we know about their ideas also.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share 2-3 things with you. I'm going to share my screen and share with you. But before I share my screen, actually, all right. So I'll share a few more testimonies of people, of students from Pakistan for you folks. One second, sorry.
Well, it has been amazing, and I have learned a lot in this journey so far. For example, hazards of war and rights of women. I was amazed to know that being a woman, one can do this much. Moreover, I think that the purpose of book club across borders is to create better understanding of the issues that I just mentioned earlier. And besides, is to create good relations between the two countries and point out the similarities between both of us. This project has completely changed the way I used to look at Afghanistan before, and now I look at them with a completely new perspective. Thank you.
So I hope you liked this testimony, and I want to know, okay, how many of you agree with what she said? Did this project change your perception of people in Pakistan? And do you think that these kind of things are helping us in understanding our world better?
Okay. Hello again. When we started this program, before that we had some a little different thought about the Pakistan. You know, we have the politics points in our countries and the Pakistan's, and it has a little different thought for each pupil of each countries. And this program is better and change my thought, because when I thought for Pakistan, I had another thought, but nowadays I know about the culture of Pakistan, that it's a little it's similar to us about the Pakistan people, that they have some customs like us. They also have it's a we are both Muslims, and also we had how we get Ramadan, also another point that is similar to our countries, and the honesty and also kindness of the Pakistan people, that they are very kindness people, and we can have good relationship with Pakistan people. We are we should be friendly person with each other, also become friend. We can change our ideas, also know about the cultures. I know about the culture of the Pakistan people. It's different thoughts that I know, and this program is good. It was good for me until yet, and I hope we continue our session and have another sessions to exchange our experience, what have our experience from the Pakistani people, and both from us.
Thank you so much for those thoughts. I have some things that I would like to share with you. Just one second, sorry. So while you guys were reading the book, Empires of the Indus, was there any folktale that you read about that you thought was fascinating, and we could talk more about that folktale? Hello, can you guys hear me? Any folktale that you read about, that you liked, that you would like to talk more about?
Yeah.
No?
Hello.
All right. Yes.
So according to your question, I think you said that which factor make us together. So according to this, I want to say that there is two things in life that keep us fresh and keep our life fresh. The one is book and the other is travel, which we will have both of them in this program, as I think, as our teacher told us. So I want to say that the factor was, which was really great for me, was about these books and also the friends we have met in here. And it's one of my dreams to meet them live, all of you, especially you, Miss. And I want to say that the books, especially the Wandering Falcon, yeah, the main character, I think it was like tour boss. So that was one of the books I really like it. So that was the story about both of the countries, Afghanistan and Pakistan. And we really catch lots of things. And one thing that I really got from that book is that the important thing in our life is just humanity. It's not important if you're a Muslim, that is not Muslim, or this one is Pakistan, this one is Indian, this one is Afghan. So the really important thing is humanity, which we all should respect humanity, and we shouldn't respect people by looking at their skin of color skin, or looking at their face, looking at their passport, or maybe we say ID card or tag. So the important thing is humanity. And we really got this thing from this program, that really we can make good friends with other people we haven't met. maybe our neighbor countries or any other country.
That's true. Thank you for those thoughts. And now coming back to the second book that you guys were reading, Empires of the Indus, I just thought that maybe I should tell you a few interesting things about the Indus. Okay, so Indus River is one of the longest rivers in the world. With a length of some 2,000 miles, its total drainage area is about 450,000 square miles, of which 175,000 square miles lie in the ranges of foothills of the Himalayas, the Hindu Kush, and the Karakoram range. The rest is in the semi-arid plains of Pakistan. The river's annual flow is about 58 cubic miles, twice that of the Nile River and 3 times that of the Tigris and Euphrates River combined. So that was something. And I also wanted to tell you about where the river actually flows, right? So the river Indus rises in the southwestern Tibet Autonomous Region of China near Lake Mapan at an elevation of about 18,000 feet. For about 200 miles, it flows northwest, crossing the southeastern boundary of the disputed Kashmir region at about 15,000 feet, a short way beyond Leh in Ladakh. It is joined on its left by its first major tributary, the Zaskar River, continuing for 150 miles in the same direction into the Pakistani administered areas of the Kashmir region. The Indus is joined by its notable tributary, the Shyok River, on the right bank. Below it confluence with the Shyok as far as the Kohistan region of Pakistan's Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. It is fed by mighty glaciers on the slopes of the Karakoram range, the Nanga Parbat Massif, and the Kohistan highlands. The Shyok, Shigar, Gilgit, and other streams carry glacial meltwater into the Indus. So I'll also tell you what are some of the legends that are found around the Indus River. So there is the legend of Adam and Durkhane, which comes from the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa region. There is the legend of Soni and Mahiwal from the Punjab, the story of Heer and Ranjha from Punjab, the story of Umar Marvi from Balochistan, and the story of Sassi and Pannu from Sindh. Other than that, I'll also tell you about some of the common languages that you will find spoken of around the Indus. Sorry for that. So the most common languages that you find in Pakistan are Sindhi, Pashto, Balochi, Seraiki, and Punjabi. And some of the games that are like, I'm not talking about football, or cricket, or something like that. I'm talking about indigenous games that you find in from the region. So you have Pehlwani, you have Kabaddi, you have Goli Danda, you have Baraf Pani, you have Pittu, you have Kho, and you have a game called Gita. Some of the common foods that you will find around the Indus are the palla fish, the trout, and a staple over here is roti. And if we talk about the art that the Indus has, we have the Chinioti furniture, we have the tile making, which originates from Sindh, the region towards the lower Indus Delta, where the river comes before it meets into the Arabian Sea. You have case, you have ralli, we have Kashmiri carpets, you have Kashmiri embroidery, you have kusas, which are shoes that are specially hand woven and made. You have ajrak, which is a fabric which has a very interesting geometric pattern. And some of the stories are like, again, that the ajrak actually comes from the Indus civilization, the pattern of the ajrak. If you were to look it up, or if you were to just Google it, you will see the pattern. And if you were to connect it to the priest from the Indus civilization, the pattern on the shawl that is draped around the priest is very similar to the print of the ajrak that you see in Sindh today. So that is a very interesting fact that we discovered while we were exploring the Indus. Then you have the blue pottery, you have the wood carvings, and you have embroidery, which is very, very unique to the region. So we must always understand that the kind of art that comes out of any region is very dependent on the resources that are available at that region, right? The colors, the patterns, the materials are all that you would have, that you would find as you were to explore the region. So that ways you can actually, so our art, our poetry, our music, our languages, our food, all of it kind of comes together to create a unique eye or a window into understanding what the whole different region is about. And we must look at it that way. We must look at it as regions that are close to us, that are connected to us, that we should be exploring further. All right. So I will also talk to you about the different headgears that you find. So like in our region, as I'm sure in Afghanistan, and I know, headgear has special significance and meaning. It is not just a covering on your head, but it is also a sign of respect and honor. So in Pakistan, we have the Sindhi topi, which is very commonly worn by the people of Sindh. You have the karakul, which is worn in the region of Gilgit-Baltistan. You have the Pashtun patki, which is worn even in Afghanistan by the Pathans. So it is something that we have in common. Then there is the Punjabi pagdi, which is a spin-off of the karakul or the Pashtun pakhti, but it is made with fabric, with cotton, and it is woven around the head, and it has a thing on the front that makes it unique. Then for the women, you have the dupatta or the chadar. And then you have another topi, which is very common, which is called the Mazari hat, which you will find very commonly worn in Pakistan. The karakul and the pagri is also worn in Balochistan, but the way it is woven or the way it is draped is slightly different. And unfortunately, we're running out of time. But next time when we meet, I would like to show you these headgears. So you can actually see them and understand what they look like. And you could also, like, maybe next time when you're speaking to a friend, talk about these things. Okay, so in Pakistan, they have this particular headgear, which is very similar to ours. So let's find out, where does it come from? How is it similar? What is the thing that makes it similar to us? You could maybe look at the pottery, like the clay pots and the way they have been carved or the way they have been painted upon. And maybe you will find a region in Afghanistan where it is very similar. So find out how. And then you will realize that in the olden days, people from these regions used to walk across each other's areas and work with each other, get influenced by each other. And if they found something unique, they brought it to their people. And they said, this we found there, this is very fascinating, let's try and do it at here. So look at the world around you as a magical place, like things that should be explored, like information that should be learned, but just don't learn it, process it. Look at your realities and see how different or similar they are. And on that note, I'm going to say Khuda Hafiz from Pakistan. It was a pleasure having you here, like always. I am really, really hopeful that next time when we meet, we will have more conversations. You people will have more questions. When you are reading, another thing that I want to reiterate, which I've been saying since the beginning, every time you read, take notes of things that make you question. And we can talk about those things, because that is why we meet, so that we have an outlet to speak about things which are mulling in our minds. And that is why conversations are the best thing in the world. And by the way, I truly believe that we pick up weapons when we do not understand the value of conversation. And conflict arises when we cannot, um, you know, um, when we cannot very logically give a testament to our conversation. So think about it that way and believe that the smartest amongst us are those that understand the value of conversation and not conflict. And on that note, I'm going to say Khuda Hafiz from Pakistan. It was great to be with you, and we shall be meeting, inshallah, next month with another book and some lovely conversations.
One of our students want to say something if we have little time.
Sure.
Okay. Hello, Assalamu alaikum.
My name is Waliullah. My last name is Mantiqi. I come from Afghanistan, Mazar Sharif, Balkh province or state. Actually, recently you told about something else that we should come up with, like having the differences between Afghanistan's culture and Pakistan cultures. The things which are similar between Afghanistan and Pakistan's cultures. But as I wanted to add that Afghanistan and Pakistan doesn't have anything else different between, because I want to add that I have lived in Pakistan approximately 7 years, 15 years ago. And I left there when I was too small, but I remember all things about Pakistan because I have studied 5 years of my school in Pakistan. So I can remember the people of Pakistan, very soft-hearted. They are hospitable, and they are very honest, like how to like express. So it's very difficult because they have too many specialties. So, but recently I had a trip in Pakistan. I went to Islamabad and Peshawar as well. So I seek that what will be different between Afghanistan and Pakistan. But unfortunately, or fortunately, I say, it wasn't anything existed. It was different between, because when you go to Pakistan, you see people are hanging around in routes and different areas. They look like Afghanis because they are wearing Afghanis outfit, and Afghani people wearing Pakistani outfit, which they are very similar. The cultures are very similar together. So in Afghanistan, I can add something that we have shirchai in breakfast, which it was too similar in Pakistan. They were using shirchai in breakfast every morning, and their foods as well. The foods were very similar with Pakistani, and the Afghani foods are very similar with Pakistani as well. So finally, I want to add that these kinds of programs are very utilized and very effective for young generation. And I hope this organization to extend the time off and the duration of these book clubs. Thank you.
Thank you so much for those thoughts. And I'm so glad that you were able to come to Pakistan and find safety at a time when your country was unsafe. And I hope and pray that nothing like that ever happens again. And even if it does, what we must always remember that we are neighbors. Our religion teaches us to be careful, hospitable, and kind to our neighbors, to provide shelter, food at time of their needs. And that is something that we must always remember. I'm glad that you took happy memories back with you. I'm so glad that we were able to not only give you a refuge or a place to stay, but we're able to give you education. We were able to give you food. And now that you have gone back safely to your own country, you are happy that you were able to do so. And that is what we must as human beings remember.
Yeah, it's
So
a pleasure, a privilege as well. Thank you for your dedication and for your for wasting of time for us. Yeah, I want to Khuda Hafiz from Afghanistan to all of Pakistanis.
Thank you so much, and we shall meet again. Khuda Hafiz.
Yeah.
Bye, Miss Alia.